Perfect. So thank you very much for joining today. Really appreciate your time. As always, if anybody has any questions, please don't hesitate to put them into the chat. I think we're going to run 2 questions in a poll today as well as part of the session. So look out for those. First and foremost, though, the session today about remote work and remote teams. I'd really like to thank Simone for coming along and presenting some great insights. So yeah, with that, I shall hand over to yourself, Simone, and thank you very much.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Ollie, very much indeed. And thank you to John for inviting me. That's great. And lovely to see you. Now, apparently, I read an article the other day that said, unwritten rule of etiquette on Zoom is you're not allowed to wave anymore. Waving is out. Well, actually, I think that's ridiculous. So I'm going to wave to everybody and say hello. It's nice to see you. Now, for those that have got their cameras off, welcome to them as well. Again, a little bit of research that I was reading the other day. It tells us that we can't multitask as well as we thought we could, unfortunately. Just one second. Ollie, am I still there? I am still there.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, you are.
Sorry, everybody. That's great. Yes, apparently we cannot multitask as well as we think we can. So we might think that we're checking our emails and we're taking part in an event, but actually our mind is busy jumping from one thing to the other, which can be, it sounds to me like it's very exhausting. So yeah, so I hope that you can join us this afternoon. It's going to be a little bit of an interactive session, so I hope you can all get involved. Just a very quick introduction to the Oak Ridge Centre. The Oak Ridge Centre provides bespoke leadership management and team effectiveness training. The centre has been doing that for 20 years with a fantastic group of associates. And yeah, a very impressive client list, including other Cambridge Chambers of Commerce members, AstraZeneca, being one of our longest term clients. The Oak Ridge Centre is actually based in the northwest of England. I joined them in November last year. So my aim is to bring the best of the north down to the east of England, best of the northwest, and have a lot of fun doing that as well. It's as I think we're going to learn, our physical location is not as important as it used to be. So yeah, hopefully we can enjoy that and get to know you all. That would be brilliant. So let me, with Ollie's help, share my screen. And here we go. There we are. Can everybody see that? Got to check.
Yeah, it's just starting to come through now. Perfect.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you for letting me know. Okie dokie. All right. Now I can't find it. So for our agenda today, hang on, let me just jump through a couple. Here. Right, for our agenda today, I'd like to start by letting you know what you are not going to get today. As Regional Director for the Oak Ridge Centre, my role includes client relations, business development and marketing. I wish I was a professional trainer. I wish I was a professional facilitator, and I can only wish to be as knowledgeable and experienced as our amazing associates. Now, if you were working with our associates, they would be presenting you with a very research theories, and they would be involving a balance between theoretical input and exponential learning. Today, on the other hand, we are going to have a look at what the word VUCA, the acronym VUCA means. We're going to have a look at some of the impacts of remote working and what the future of remote working might look like. And we're going to look at ways in which we could possibly better manage ourselves and our teams as we work remotely. And hopefully we can have a little bit of fun along the way. So let's start off with a very quick poll. Ollie, please can you run the first poll for me? We would like to find out, in the last week up until today, how many video conferencing calls have you had? How many do you think? Be interesting to find out. And we're going to look at the results in a little while. So Ollie, if you once we think that everybody's responded, it's always curious to find out Oh, there we go, 23 people. And wow, you're all doing brilliant. Well done. Well, 20 out of 23. And I think Ollie and I make 2. So that's great. Thank you very much indeed. We'll find the results out in a short time. Wonderful. So we're off. So the marketing in the promotion of the event today talked about the term VUCA. Now, many of you have probably been able to attend some fantastic training events about the VUCA world with highly professional facilitators. I'm going to provide a very brief overview of what the VUCA world looks like. But if you'd like to find out more or get a bit more in depth with VUCA, then please just let me know and we'll be able to sort something out for you. So the acronym VUCA stands for, the first one is volatile. This is a place, this is a world, so the VUCA world, volatile world, is where things are changing very fast, but not in a predictable way, not in a repeatable pattern. And I think we can all agree we're in a very, very volatile time at the moment. The second letter is uncertain. This means that there is major disruptive changes which are occurring very frequently. The past is no longer an accurate predictor of the future. Once again, here we are in the COVID world, same thing, very uncertain. The C is for complex. There are numerous difficult to understand causes and mitigating factors involved in the world that we're in. It's so complex and often confusing. I'm sure that the C could be used for confusing. And finally, it is ambiguous. There is ambiguity. The causes and the who, the what, the where, how and why behind the things that are happening, really unclear. We're just not too sure what is happening. So when I believe that VUCA was actually something that was coined by the US military, and then some other leadership development people brought it into a theoretical concept. I'm sure they weren't thinking about COVID when they wrote it, but my goodness me, it is extremely relevant. So how do we mitigate against the VUCA world, that volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous world? There's something called VUCA Prime, which is the theory that goes alongside VUCA. And it looks at the different ways in which we do try to mitigate against these terms. So those involve vision for the volatile world. We need to have a vision. We need some understanding to make something clear from the uncertainty. We need clarity. We need to try and clarify the complex, and we need the agility to deal with the ambiguity. Now, I'm going to look into those a little bit more detail in relation to work, remote working in a very short time. So I'm going to leave you there with those for just 1 second, and so you can have a think about VUCA. Ollie, if anybody raises their hands, please let me know, because I probably won't be able to see. And I'm cool for anybody to ask questions at any point, but we'll have a session at the end, I'm sure. So that's brilliant. Thank you. Right, so remote working, my goodness me. It's we're all just coming up for 12 months now of everybody having to, well, not everybody, sorry, forgive me, many people having to get used to remote working. Now, in April 2020, obviously a fair while ago, statistics from the Office for National Statistics showed that 49.2% of adults in employment were working from home, or for at least a time. You've always got to be very careful with the ONS stats. They always have a little caveat on them. So, but yes, at least for part of the week, part of the month, almost half of the adults in the UK were spending time working from home. Microsoft has said that they believe that 2 years of digital transformation took place in a matter of months at those early months of last year. And 80% of UK computers, according to the Ford European Commuter Survey, are late for work at least once in an average month in the old world. And we wonder, it just may be curious to say, I wonder if employers are now benefiting from that time that we used to be late for work. We'll look into that a little bit later on as well. 39% of remote workers work longer hours than office-based employees, according to Cardiff University. Now, this study was done before COVID, so it would be interesting. I'm sure they're going to repeat it very soon, and if we find out, I will let you know. And 72% of, according to LinkedIn, of hiring professionals believe flexible working is going to be important to HR and recruitment in the future. It's going to be one of those things that's going to give employers a tick box when candidates are looking at certain jobs. And then recruitment, Adecco, one of the large recruitment companies, in a survey has said that 77% of all workers that they're interviewing would like to work in a hybrid workplace. Now, whatever we decide about, and nobody knows the future, obviously, we don't know what's going to happen, but I believe, and it would be interesting to discuss this with you later, I believe that the hybrid workplace will be the time, will be the future. And people will want to have that choice, that different choice. And obviously the feelings of well-being and safety will come into that as well. So I'm going to ask Ollie if you can run another poll. I'm making you do your work today, Ollie. If you could do that for me, please, that would be great. I'd like to find out from you lovely people, when you believe you're the most productive, when are you able to get those really challenging things written, or what's the best time of day for you to work? When do you feel like you're really cracking it and getting things out there? That's great, because we're all a little bit different. Super. Oh, you're a very good bunch, I have to say. Excellent. That's lovely. Well, thank you. If you could close that poll for me, please, Ollie, that would be great. And we'll have a look at those at any minute now. That's brilliant. So, leading remote teams. We said we'd have a look at that. So when we were instructed to work from home in March 2020, some team leaders and some managers really stepped up and concentrated on getting that sense of community together, managing the human factors, making sure everybody had the right chair and were comfortable and had everything that they needed, and that they were still chatting to their team members. And many staff reported that they noticed an increase in the humanization of leadership, that they actually felt care and concern coming towards them. And that even though it was the most difficult of circumstances and people were really, really concerned about their own health, they felt that their majority, some, gosh, I've got a caveat, haven't I? But some of them felt that they had the backup of their companies. However, on the other hand, and there's always another hand, isn't there? Some managers struggled with the environment where they could not monitor or control the work that people were doing, their staff were doing, and they worried about the productivity. Now, I wonder if there's anybody in this room today, and it is a room in a Zoom in a room, but anybody here has actually thought, since they've been here, I wonder what my team's up to. I wonder if everyone's cracking on. I'm not sure if those are the kind of situations that you're in. But there is that feeling that when we were in work and leading teams, we could see it, we could feel it. The energy was flowing, the meetings were buzzing. You know, there was something going on. Now we've got Microsoft Teams or Slack, if you use that one, and Zoom meeting, and that's it. That is our visibility. Obviously, some will have more fancy equipment. So let's remember that brief look that we took at VUCA at the beginning and ask ourselves how we're doing in relation to motivating others and ourselves in terms of the VUCA acronym. Sorry, forgive me. So let's start with our vision. Do you and your team know what your vision is? Does everyone know what the desired future state of your organization is? It might be 5 years, it might be 1 year, it might be 100 days. But have you decided anything about the future that you think your team might have? We are social animals and we like to know that we're contributing to something worthwhile. So has that been communicated? That's really, really important. That's the vision. And once we've communicated the vision, we need to ideally have a context map to help us understand all the factors that are in play as we work towards the vision. Are you and your team understanding together the challenges that need to be overcome, the opportunities that maybe can be leveraged, and the risks that need to be mitigated? Are your team being asked about their understanding of the stakeholders within your organization? Are your team able to communicate back what's happening within their world? Sharing information is so much easier, actually, or not, maybe not so much easier, but there are ways of doing it that can be anonymous as well. If people think, if somebody's asked about, what do you think our shareholders think of us, they don't have to say so in a meeting. They can use things like Google Jamboard or Mentimeter and feed in that way, which can be exceptionally useful for leaders and those making the strategic decisions. We then ask ourselves about clarity. And my first little icon there is a man shouting down his megaphone. Because we need to look at ourselves and we need to say, am I being clear with my communications? Crystal clarity is so important when we're working remotely. Now, I'm sure that, like me, you will have either received or sent a text message that was interpreted incorrectly. Never meant to cause any harm, never meant to cause any offense, but unfortunately, that's what happened. That's the same with our communications when we're working remotely. We need to actually stand back, look at what we're about to send, and actually say, will this be misunderstood? Can this be misunderstood? And if the answer is maybe, then we need to focus in and remember what it is we're asking for, what it is we're sharing, or actually what are we instructing perhaps. Is it clear for your team when you're going to are your team meetings in a regular order? Is it clear when one-to-ones are supposed to be happening? And is it clear when the core hours, when you do expect people to be available, is that clear for your team? Clarity within the VUCA world also involves problem solving, and the problems can be very different in a remote work environment. They can be different and difficult. With some of our clients recently, we've had managers saying that they're being asked about mental health support. Their team members are saying, I'm worried about my mum, or they're actually, team members are being very, very open, and managers are thinking, do I have the skills to deal with this? So those are their team's problems that they're trying to solve, but meanwhile they're feeling that they're not as qualified to do so. So it's really important at this time that we learn and we ask from others. It's vital that we as managers actually reach out to others that can support us and actually help us, so that we can then deliver that to our team. So the communication lines being open is crucial. And then we look at our agility. The dictionary definition of agility is an ability to change the body's position efficiently. It requires the integration of isolated movement, skills using a combination of balance, coordination, speed, reflexes, strength, and endurance. Now, the first reading of that definition, it appears that agility is about being quick and swift and speedy. Another word for agility is nimbleness. And I don't know about you, but I associate that with a squirrel. Squirrels are nimble and they are very, very fast. However, although we have to make changes within our ambiguous world quite quickly, and we all had to make changes when we first came into lockdown and working from home, we're becoming accustomed to them now. And now we need to look at those words that were also within the definition: balance, coordination, and endurance. We've all read lots and lots of articles about the detrimental impacts of an unhealthy work-life balance. We know that the coordination of our team's skills and abilities, along with our own, can help us all become more productive. And we also recognize that for every person who's thriving in a home working environment, there will be other people who are finding things very difficult and whose endurance is really being tested. I'm dreadfully sorry to end that on a bit of a downward spiral. But it is true that managers' attitude to control is one of the biggest barriers to successful remote working. And if people are still struggling with that attitude of trust, of being able to believe and give that kind of go for it to their team, then yeah, please let's have a chat, because there are different mechanisms that we can look at. So let's lighten the mood a little bit. Ollie, can I have the results of the first poll, please? Could you let us know what was happening with regards to Zoom?
Absolutely.
Interesting. Okay, quite a mix there. Oh my gosh, those poor people who do 20. Wow, gosh, what's that? If we keep it at 5 days, 4 Zoom meetings a day. Wow. So we've got we've got 4 people. It's a nice spread, actually, isn't it? So yes, 8 people probably doing way too many, but 4 to 6 a week, I think we can probably manage that. But actually, that's 20, isn't it? Sorry, I forget. That's 20 up to today. Golly, take care of yourselves, everybody. And those doing 1 to 3 a week, well done. That's absolutely superb. Thank you, Ollie. Thank you very much indeed. That's great, because that's going to take us into our next little topic here, which is all about Zoom fatigue. Now, this is there are other platforms. Please, there are other platforms. But Zoom fatigue is actually being looked at by psychologists who say that it's something that's becoming very prevalent in the world of remote work, and especially now at the moment. And it's actually about feeling absolutely exhausted from the use of online video calling mechanisms. So it is a real thing, people, I hate to tell you. So yeah, it is actually it's causing exhaustion from video calls. Our brains have to work harder when we're on video calls, and that's because we can't pick up on those non-verbal cues that we would normally do, such as the body language of somebody in the room, or the raising of an eyebrow, because obviously we can only see the people that are on our screen. If we've got a big room, we're not going to be able to see that. And how about when everyone's silent and they're waiting? It can be quite distracting. So that one noise, somebody left their microphone on and a dog barking, oh, everybody's put out by that. So we shift, our attention is, we have to pay attention. So any kind of slight delay, or if there's a tiny little bit of problem with our tech, it's going to make our concentration levels have to work even harder. We're always on. Now this is all about self-view, which I have to say I don't have on today, so I have no idea what you're seeing. No, I do. No, I don't actually, but hey. So usually in a meeting room, we're concentrating on other people's reactions. We're watching them. But when we have our self-view on Zoom or Teams or whatever it is, we cannot help but look at what we look like, or even if we're not doing it all the time, we occasionally do it. One of the best things you can do, and we'll talk about that when we talk about the ways of counteracting that, is yeah, to we're always on camera, we feel. So let's try and we'll try and work on that one a bit later. We are easily distracted. I spoke right at the beginning about our believing that we can multitask. The fact is that we can't. We just can't do it. Our brains are unable to do that. So we can come away from a meeting like this, or trying to do our emails, either not having listened to the meeting and not done particularly well on our emails, or having one or the other done well, and then feeling negative because we haven't done both of them well. But yeah, we can do things like walk down the street and drink, because they're not so related as listening and typing, if that makes sense. It's kind of, they're different parts of the brain that are working. Gosh, we've got great business psychologists who work with us, and they would be able to explain that far better than I have. But yeah, we're not as particularly good at multitasking. And then we have the issue with technical gremlins. You know, sometimes it's our Wi-Fi's gone or the screen's frozen. Somebody can't share their screen. Software goes mad. There's lags, and oh, it's just so incredibly stressful. And that makes us tired. It makes us exceptionally exhausted. So let's have a look at what we can do to maybe mitigate some of these things within our Zoom and other video call experiences. So let's have a look. We can have no meeting time blocks. We can actually put it in our calendars, or we can say that actually we're having no meetings at this time. We could actually put in the words "do not book," which is kind of unambiguous. We could also look at possibly having one free day. Apparently for many, Wednesdays is it. No online meetings, no Zoom, no Teams, no nothing. So it's a meeting free day. Or other people are actually having just one day where they do them all. And I don't just like to wonder how the lovely people who had over 20 meetings this week would manage that one. But yeah, they're different things, different ways we could try. We could also try and assess the value of the meetings. Do we actually have to be there? Could it be dealt with in a different way? I mean, that's going back to basic time management skills. But sometimes it's so quick, it's so easy. Oh, let's just have a quick Zoom. Well, no, actually, your time is exceptionally precious, as is the time of your teams too. So we could also, having a look at text-based communications, we could have a look at those. So again, assessing the value of a meeting, we could actually say, could you just jot down what you need me for? Or, you know, can we all read this document and feed into it together, whether we're using SharePoint or Google Docs? Do we actually have to go on camera and have another meeting? As a leader or a manager, you might like to think, somebody I know has just started using WhatsApp Record, you know, the little voicemails that you can leave on there. On a Friday at about 3 o'clock, she'll leave a voicemail message on WhatsApp for her team to say, have a great weekend. She'll need to call a meeting to do that or have an update. That's quite nice. And also, sometimes we can record an important message about either a presentation or a paper that we were going to give to our team, but actually record it so that they can watch it at the suitable time for them. Some people might be concerned, how do I monitor that they've watched it? How do I know? I don't know, it's trust again, but you could always say, and by the way, there's a task for each of you within the recording, but yeah, that's up to you and your team. So yeah, next one, always have an agenda. Sorry, that's my alarm going off. Always have an agenda, and make sure that every meeting that you go into has a really tight agenda. And the other thing is, we do need to have meetings. We do have to have minutes of our Zoom meetings and actions, or else it's just kind of lost in the ether. We can record them, but if we're not making note of the things that we need people to do or ourselves to do, kind of, yeah, we need to work on that one, I think. So just as in-person meetings, even when you're back to back in meetings in your office in the old days, you used to have little breaks, didn't you? You'd be able to get up and go and get a cup of coffee or switch meeting rooms. And we need those same breaks within when we Zoom and other meetings when we're working remotely. Try to schedule some breaks into a video call filled day. And maybe actually try to go for the speedy meeting idea, a 50-minute meeting instead of an hour, 25 minutes instead of 30. Those extra few minutes would just give you and everyone else involved in that busy schedule a time to stretch, visit the bathroom, or grab something to eat. I talked already about self-view. Hide it. It's really, really easy to do. There's little buttons up there that can do it. I'm sure Ollie's probably the best person to teach you about that one. Turn it off, so that you can actually concentrate what's happening on the meeting. Now, I spoke earlier about turning your camera off and the fact that if you're doing that to do something else, kind of going to take its tax on your brain. Like if you're having a team meeting There's no reason. Do you remember the old days? I'm sure some of you remember the old days when you used to have a conference call and it was actually on the telephone, and there was 5 people on there, but you wouldn't be able to see them. You can still do that. You can still have that sharing, that camaraderie, that kind of everybody being responsible, but we don't have to have your cameras on all of the time. Then yeah, and then finally, again, I'm back on my multitasking again, aren't I? So yeah, whenever you can, try to minimize your tabs, your email, your platform, and focus on the meeting, especially if it's with your team. You'll be able to pick up on verbal or non-verbal cues if you're really concentrating, and your brain won't have to work overtime jumping from one task to the next. Ollie, could we have a look at the second poll, please? Brilliant, look at that. Now, my next thing was going to ask you who is an owl and who is a lark, but I can see that we've got morning people here. That's fantastic. It's kind of expected. There's something in our brain mechanisms, isn't there? I know if you've ever been invited to speak at a conference, they always say, don't they, avoid the 2 o'clock session in the mid-afternoon. So that's brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. That's great to see that. Yes, because I was going to my last little tips are about quick wins for those working remotely, and it is about owls or larks. That's the first thing I was going to say. So we all know when our best time for productivity is, but have you spoken about that with your team? Is there a way for their working schedules to be able to work with their best productivity outside of conventional office hours? It's a good conversation to have because we're all different. The second one is to actually look at the fact that we need to become outcome oriented rather than activity focused. I know I'm reading from my slide, which they tell you never to do. But what I'm saying is what is actually being produced, because obviously production is the how we measure productivity. So we can be busy, but actually what is that actual outcome coming through? And your team are going to work in different ways. It might not appear like that in the office, but sometimes you can see a difference when you're remote working. And we've got to face the fact that some people do work faster than others. It's just how it rolls. And I'm sure that they do that when they're in a normal work environment as well. However, we've got to be careful that we don't start to give those people more things to do. If you've got people on an equal par and they all work in a different way, we need to work out ways to ensure that we're not piling stuff onto the people that work more quickly, because it does create inequality, both ways, in that the person that takes a little bit more time will say that they're being overlooked, and the one that's getting too much more work will say they're getting overworked. So just be very mindful of that one more than anything. Email etiquette when we're working from home, just little tiny things. So lovely if you are a nighttime keyboard warrior, as some people are, the occasional email at nighttime. It's good sometimes to have a little saying at the bottom of your email that might say something like, if I am sending emails out of normal working hours, it's probably because I'm working flexibly. Please be assured that I do not expect you to respond outside of your own working hours. And it's kind of like, I acknowledge that 4 o'clock in the morning might not be a time that you're working. I hope it's nobody's time actually, but some of you will have used delayed send on your emails as well. I tend to use that when I do a little bit of the weekend, and usually just small things. But what I've known, and I've had my knuckles rapped by my colleagues, is that I timed them all to arrive stupidly, and I hadn't even thought about it. This one lady received 8 emails at 8:30 in the morning, bish, bash, bash, like that. Oh, it completely destroyed her day. So yeah, so we've got to be mindful that we don't have all of our emails arriving. Oh, I feel really guilty still. This was a couple of years ago. Delayed send is great. I love delayed send because it just means that nothing's pinging for anybody over the weekends or late in the evening, but we do need to be mindful of when that email is about to land. That is a good piece of advice, I think. Next one is tidy your desk and shut the door. Basics, getting back to basics again. But we're working from home. Not all of us have always worked from home. We now have our place established of where we're going to be. But if, like me, my office is in a kind of a bit of a thoroughfare from the kitchen to the lounge, and I make sure that my desk is clear at the end of it. It's not tidy, don't get me wrong, it's not tidy, it's all just in drawers. So I pull all the mess out again the next day. But it means that my eye is not drawn to the desk every time I go through. And that's a recommendation. If you have an office you can shut the door on, do it. And encourage your team to do that as well. We've got to find that balance between work life and home life. So yeah, as I say, going back to basics, but we've got to remind ourselves of some of these. Now then, I missed the top one there that you can see. It says drivers and strengths. If you've not done so already, I would highly recommend running a drivers and strengths session with your team, looking at the inner drivers within them that they probably don't even know that they have, and their strengths as a team. It's really great as a re-energizer. I was lucky enough to sit in with one of these sessions with a voluntary organisation last week, and it was great. You know, they felt rejuvenated and they felt positive because they were looking at their, you know, some of them were feeling a bit kind of, well, it's this February in the snow and you can actually visibly watch them when the facilitator was sharing back their drivers and their strengths. So yeah, highly recommend. I think that's fantastic. Yes, so we've got, what have we got here now? Oh yes, this is great. Sorry, I had to share this one. So apparently this gentleman in Boston he is bookshelf curating people's backgrounds, like mine here. I don't have very many books on it. Apparently he's looking at the books that people are using in their Zoom. He's recommending a few different ones if they, you know, if they're reading, I don't know, Christopher Marlowe. He'll recommend some others. He'll then set his bookcase up in his bookshop there and take a photograph and send it to them. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. It's just entrepreneurial, which is great. Recommend if you are trying to do some deep focus work to really, you know, like cut out and get on with something without distraction. It's relatively not too recent, but binaural beats or focus music, it's called. You can look those up on YouTube. It's not all gongs and things like that, but there is gongs if you like them. But it does help. I was very skeptical about, I just thought that was a load of rubbish, but actually I've been using them the last couple of weeks and it's really helped. And then we have this wonderful, absolutely wonderful website called The Sound of Colleagues. It's just, I'll show you a bigger picture. It was created by two companies in Sweden who were just really missing the crazy sounds of the office. So yeah, you can see there, you can have the office dog. He starts to bark if you put your thing up a little bit bigger. Coffee machines, rain on the window. And it's been used by millions and millions of people all across the world. So yeah, so that's my final little bit there. And I'm going to say thank you very much and ask if there's any questions or Ollie, what we do next, if that's okay. And thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. There's an awful lot of content in those slides to think about. And there's an awful lot of good advice. I think from my own perspective, working from home is something that I've done for many years. The blocking out your calendar and being responsible for your time management is super important. Mm-hmm. In a previous role, there was 37,000 people had access to my calendar. You could wake up in the morning and it'd be empty, and by 8:15 it was full for the day and back to back. So you really did have to block things out. But also as well, it was silly things like blocking out for lunch to make sure that you take lunch and that you're looking after yourself. Yeah. Going back to one of the previous things that you spoke about there, Amazon, their meetings, they have a strict policy, no slides, zero PowerPoint at any meetings. And actually what you have to do is you have to write a brief about why you're having the meeting.
That's right.
Send it to everybody that's attending the meeting. And then at the beginning, you will take 5-10 minutes to read the brief before you start responding. So they've got an entirely different process around it. I don't agree with everything Amazon does and AWS, but certainly there's some policies. But yeah, are there any questions? Has anybody got any questions for Simone?
Don't be shy.
Tough crowd. So Simone, okay, well, just to get things kicking off, obviously if you work from home effectively, there can be a work-life balance in your favor, right? But also, so from an employee perspective, not sitting in the car for a number of hours a day can be hugely beneficial. Having children as well from 3 o'clock in the afternoon and being able to be more part of their lives is also really beneficial. But from an employer's perspective, do you think they've also benefited from their staff not having to commute?
Yes, I mean, that's an interesting one, isn't it? And again, it comes down to those, has the leadership team actually set the ground rules? Because we could all, you know, some people might be at their desk at 7 when normally they'd be on the A14 or, you know, the A12 or something like that. But we've got to make sure that it's not actually impacting on on our physical and mental health. I have to admit that I used to drive a lot for work. I never thought I'd miss it, but I do. I miss that kind of downtime, you know, that time to think before you get there, and that time to get before you get back. I've actually threatened to go and drive around the block a few times, actually, just to. But yeah, I think those employers that have handled the shift to remote working properly, have done the best that they can, have asked for help, you know, have attended things like this and different guidances. They are benefiting from the happier workforce, who are being able to see more of their family, as you quite rightly said. But as I said before, for every person that's having a good time and getting on, there is somebody that's having a really, really tough deal, and that's when our communication is so important.
Yeah, 100%. I would also think that from a leadership perspective, being able to regularly stay in contact. I mean, previously we used to have 175 people every Monday on a Zoom call. That was our immediate team in Europe. Everybody contributed. People would, talk about what was going on in their worlds. But also senior management, as you went up through the business, you'd find that 3 hours, 4 hours of your week was blocked out just to leadership conversations. That's before you get near team and that sort of thing. And I know that from a manager one-to-one perspective, scheduling that time is really, really important. And actually, you find that typically you've got less of it when you're working remotely.
Yes, indeed. It's interesting, but because somebody, one of the ladies that we work with AstraZeneca, she was saying, and I'm sure I'm not speaking out of turn, that sorry, John, help me. The chief executive of AstraZeneca was on every single staff meeting all the way up till, I don't know, well, for months when they went into lockdown. And you kind of think, in size of that business, I was like, that is 10 out of 10, isn't it? To actually have that kind of commitment all the way from the top down. I think that's brilliant. That's hearsay, but it is crucial, very, very important.
If I could add into that on that particular point.
Hi, Richard.
Hi there. Richard Carey at Park Air. I think when we first went remote at the start of this, it did feel like you had to make a great deal more effort to actually have that interaction and to keep in touch. It was almost like you had to have your own little miniature communications plan for your own team, right, to replace those conversations that you would kind of naturally have as you were wandering around the office.
Yeah, but also important to keep them up, isn't it, Richard? You've got to, because your team are going to be doing different things at different times and feeling different things. So, but if you can get your structure in place and everyone's happy with it, that's great. That is good.
Just one thing to add to that as well, and it was a great point, Richard. This hasn't died out. We still own it, by the way. So you're still okay to pick it up and talk to people. You don't need to schedule a Zoom.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if anyone else has noticed that, but certainly over the last year, everything has gone to, okay, well, let's schedule a Zoom just to talk. And that's kind of insane, right? So yeah, just something that I'd noticed over the last.
Yeah, I've just said, because I'm just getting back in touch with some people I haven't seen for a while, because I've changed jobs, and I've actually said to them, no, we both know what each other looks like, so I'm just going to pick up the phone. And it's lovely because you can then go for a walk as well, which is so good for your mental health, you know. So yeah, be brutal with your time.
Just to step in on there, hello, it's
Yeah.
Rupert from CTM. We operate a help desk, so we have lots of
Oh,
our customers'
yes.
employees phone in, and when all of this kicked off in the beginning of last year, 12 months ago, we put lots of efforts in place to make sure our team are okay with one-to-ones and so on and so forth. But an interesting side effect is we found a lot of our customers would phone up and ask for tech support to fix broken computers and, you know, Wi-Fi and all of the home working stuff, and also just hang around a bit for a bit of a chat with our technicians. And our help desk swung from like 95% fixing the problem, 5% chat, to 50% fixing the problem, 50% is that your cat? How are you getting on? How are you working from home? And you know, our staff sort of slowly morphed from technical engineers to counselors, and then as everything settled down, back into technical engineers again. And the side effect on our guys is, and gals, the help desk team, they needed support from the management at CTM to be able to deal with other people's problems. Not technical problems, because like they can do all of that, you pay them to do that, but what happens when someone's crying on the phone?
Yeah, absolutely.
And,
those are,
you know, a 22-year-old technician isn't paid to sit there to listen to someone cry on the phone, but they're going to do it. They're going to damn well do it, because they're people and they're humans and they like our customers and so on and so forth. And you know, CTM supporting our staff to support your staff was a bit of a strange side effect. We hadn't really seen that one coming. That's tapered away as people have got used to this. But yeah, that and other horror stories about installing monitoring software and all sorts of stuff I could regale you with, but probably
gosh, there's one of these sessions on its own, John. There you go.
Well, it's interesting to see which customers trust their employees to be judged on their outputs of their job, not the inputs of their job. There's one customer who basically is bums on seats, and if the office is empty, the business has stopped. And so he had a right old problem when everyone had to go and work from home.
Got it. Yes, absolutely.
So on that topic, Rupert, if you don't mind, a quick question, because, and it's something that Simone talked about a bit earlier on, so I'm sort of looping you both in here. I've got a really stable internet connection at home that works incredibly well with great bandwidth. And I'm also very technical. So to solve problems around the house when it comes to IT issues, I am the in-house tech support. There's a lot of people that have not so great bandwidth, that live in villages and things like that don't have great connectivity, and likewise don't have technical skills internally. How have these people, you know, number one, the inequality of being able to acquire the right technical skills and the right technical infrastructure to be able to work effectively, how's that impacted those people from your opinion?
Simone, do you want to go first, or do you want me to?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, you know, we've mentioned inequality at the end about giving busy people more work to do, and it is a responsibility. I don't know how many people have got remote working policies, but those actually have to have a duty of care within them. You know, we will provide you with what you need. On the other hand, what we've noticed at Oak Ridge, we do a program for female leadership, female managers who are looking to take their next step up, and we've actually found that there's more people getting involved in that, because it's actually freed, being able to be online has actually freed them up to not have to drive into the centre of Manchester at 6 o'clock in the morning. So it's kind of that balance. But yeah, from a technical point of view, I think we have to have a duty of care to enable our people to do what they need to do. But over to Rupert on your experience of the situation, because it's a difficult region that we're in, isn't it?
Well, the upshot is, whilst I, you know, as the managing director at CTM, yes, we have a duty of care to make sure our staff are looked after and so on and so forth. But as employees, they also have a duty of care to be technically knowledgeable enough to now be able to work from home. And if you're not and you can't, well, someone else is going to be, and they're going to get your job. Imagine if you went to live somewhere and there were no roads. So you lived there, but you couldn't drive to work. Okay. So you're not going to complain to your boss that I can't come in today because there are no roads outside my house. But it's the same with internet connections. If you've got a slow internet connection in your village and BT and Virgin and all these other people aren't going to do anything about it, well, you can't work remotely, but other people can. So they're going to get the job and you're not. So that technical divide is going to start prizing the country apart. And if you've got a slow internet connection and you're not technically savvy, then you have less job opportunities than people who have fast internet connections and who are technically savvy.
Yeah.
And that's a bit harsh, but if you choose to live somewhere without any roads and you choose not to learn how to drive, you can't complain that you can't drive to the other end of the country to go and do a job. And so, yeah, there's not much you can do about getting roads laid to your house or getting internet connections sped up to your house. But you can tool yourself up technologically. You know, you can go to technical seminars and there's plenty of reading material online, and you can have a duty of care to make sure that you are as skilled up as possible. So when someone says, can you jump on a Zoom meeting for your interview, you know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a challenge, I think, as well. We've got to be careful that we don't penalise people retrospectively for decisions that they made 5 years ago that they're suffering for today as a result of things like COVID. The government's strategy to enable communications out to villages and remote regions to try and give internet for all hasn't really got the density that it should have yet. But yeah, I can appreciate the point. The other piece to this as well is the outcome-based, roles. And by outcome-based, it's not a bums on seat exercise between certain hours of the day anymore. For a lot of roles, some roles such as help desk will require that still. But the outcome there is that, again, never ever had a conversation about where were you at any time of the day in a previous role. It was all about, well, you've performed really well in terms of your contribution to the team or the business. But that's a big leadership change. I know, John, that's something we've spoken about a few times over the last 12, 18 months, isn't it? It's thinking about what is it that you need your employees to produce as a business in order to survive, as opposed to a time exercise.
And that's your vision then, isn't it? That is your vision, your understanding, your clarity. You've got to, whatever decisions you make of where the ultimate aim is, how are your team going to get there? Sorry, interrupting you.
No. There was a lead on to that, which is that basically, again, some people can work really effective, really quickly, do a great outcome that they're paid towards doing. Does that mean they should do more as a time fill, or does that mean actually, the business is happy with what they've achieved? So, there are some balances to this. Coincidentally, on the productivity side, my most productive time of the day is between 5 and 9 a.m. because I get no emails, my phone doesn't ring, and I'm definitely not on any Zoom calls. So, and that was a balancing decision that I made a long time ago, which was to shift my life the other way slightly. But again, it comes down to learning and adapting, doesn't it?
Absolutely, because we can pause our emails, can't we, Ollie? You know that. We can turn them off at 3 o'clock in the afternoon if we wished. Bless you.
Well, I also think that it's going back to that. There are strict rules, which is at 7 o'clock in the evening, the office doors closed, nobody goes back in there. Good. There are caveats to that, but then that's the world I chose to live in. But the outcome of where I'm going with it is mentally liberating to tell yourself, actually, you know what, that's it. I'm done for the day. Put everything down, switch everything off until you need to start the next morning.
Yeah, and we need to celebrate. We need to celebrate the small wins. It's because normally, in a normal world, I don't think there is such a thing anymore. We can't keep harking back because it's not going to go back to. I don't believe. I mean, everyone's got theories, But we need to celebrate the small wins, because, you know, we might do a high five with somebody on the lift on our way down saying, yay, I got my such and such done. But we're not doing that anymore, or we don't have, it's not as easy to do it. So as a team, yeah, you know, and we can do that with our oh, there's a lovely word for them, asynchronistic, you know, the online, we can send a little note in Teams saying, finish this, happy smiley face. So we can use the emoticons to communicate with each other and say, you know, I'm really chuffed, or yeah, in any other way. So
Oh, sorry, I was going to just say on that one, Simone, we do a weekly roundup call, video call on Friday mornings, and we call it's a bit rude, so I won't say the whole name of it, but it's obvious silly mistakes and commendations.
Brilliant.
Insert what you like into obvious silly mistakes. And so where our customers have given us good feedback on our NPS, our customer survey, Net Promoter Score emails and feedback, where we've got internal and external commendations, it's an opportunity for the team to cross-volunteer their peers for a nomination. And if you've done something particularly stupid, then you can self-nominate for some
put your hand up. That's
gentle.
lovely.
You never guess what stupid thing I did this week. Oh, yeah, we all have a laugh at the director's expense and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
And that's very good for bringing the team forward. And I encourage my staff, because I encourage my staff to nominate their peers. If you think someone's done a good job, say it in that meeting. Don't just let it be top down. I want to give a well done to all these following people.
Sure.
It provides a nice matrix of positive reinforcement.
Brilliant. That's great.
It's just 10 minutes a week, but it's very good for a laugh, and everyone's included in the commendations and the anti-commendations.
Brilliant. Oh, lovely.
One final quick question to really everybody on the call, which is that if you think about how promotions and those sort of things have been evaluated in the past, they were based typically on a degree of networking, but predominantly output and who's done a really, really good job. Essentially, that's what it was always based around, and you would see employees working late and doing all sorts of things in order to get that promotion. As a result of mental health and well-being and everything that we've seen in the last 12 months, how do we think that that's going to pan out moving forwards? What will be the new kind of benchmark that we will use in terms of figuring out who we promote and who we need to talk to? Have I just killed the room?
No. It's really interesting, because it's something that Oak Ridge is actually doing with a number of clients at the moment, is looking at their performance development programs. How are they going to actually change this? Because, you know, I was speaking to somebody the other day who said that she's now having to feed into her line manager about who she thinks in her team should be getting bonuses. And she said, you know, I've got one group over here who adapted to lockdown. They were in it, they were on it, absolutely no problem. Bish bash bosh, done, you know, output, wonderful. And another team who weren't like that, but through no fault of their own. The fact is that these guys had aging parents or young children, or were living in one room, or whatever it was, you know, it wasn't their fault. And she said, I'm finding it really tough. Really, really tough. What do I do? So it's going to be an interesting one, and I think it's going to be time will tell. There will be recommendations coming through, I'm sure, from the big consultancy firms. But I don't know. What do you think? I mean, yeah, Ollie, are you going to be looking for promotions or people to promote soon?
Personally, won't be looking for promotion. But at the same time as well, looking at the team, I mean, it's an interesting one. Again, I've got a friend that works for AWS. He's a manager. His team is around 30 people, and every year when they do a review, they have to put 10% of the team on a PIP standard.
Right.
You have to say, right, in his scenario, these are the 3 lowest performing employees, and they just go straight onto a PIP. And that for me is a little bit, that's a little bit harsh, because you could have a great team of 30 people and now you've got to find a reason to put them on a PIP. But it's just, they're the sort of mechanics that we need to think about. And I think that, back to your point, we have to judge everybody as individuals. Absolutely. But at the same time, there has to be, businesses have to find new ways
Mhm,
to be
mhm.
able to assess teams.
Yes, indeed, absolutely, absolutely. Oh yeah, we're just at the start of a journey. I think everyone will agree with that. You know, we really are just at the beginning. So.
But on the basis of that, the research will help us redefine how we start to use those management processes and practices and put everything in a place to create that level playing field.
Indeed.
In
Yeah.
order to make those decisions, you know. Yeah, on that basis, what you're saying is work harder, not smarter. No, working smarter, not harder. Sorry, let me get that right, yeah.
Oh.
That's
Both.
awesome. With that, I'd like to say thank you very much. We're at the top of the hour. It's been massively thought-provoking. I personally really appreciate it. The polls have given me some good insights as well. John, I'm going to hand over to you if that's okay.
No, just to say thanks very much to Simone. Really interesting, and we do appreciate your contribution today, and I'm sure it's made us all think. I have to say that you know, with my colleagues in the chambers all over the country, the real focus is on what is the work situation going to look like for the future. How is it going to change? Are the decisions going to be made about the people, or is it going to be made about the cost of premises? What are the issues? And particularly, as was highlighted, the divide of the ability for people to have the digital needs that they have to work effectively. There's lots of discussions ongoing in relation to this, but I think the real, you know, application of today is to focus our minds on how we actually do engage with our people, that it can't just happen by accident. It has to happen in a planned way, so we know and understand the psychology of how we can make sure that we get the best out of our people. And the fact is that we have to know and understand that we need to move to an outcome-based situation where we trust our people to produce the results for us, and we allow them to manage their time, and we don't get involved in that process. But for some people, that is quite challenging and difficult. But we will see, and I'm sure that we'll be having many discussions over the coming weeks and months about the way this is going to develop. But the content today has been excellent. So thank you, Simone. And I'm sure everybody knows and understands that this is going to make them really think about what they do and how they do it. And finally, of course, Ollie, who always very much looks after our events. Thanks, Ollie, for obviously being with us yet again, and all your ongoing support, which we really appreciate. And look forward to seeing you all again. And I'm sure that this is something we'll all be considering looking at and discussing about the best way forward for our own individuality and our businesses. Thank you.
Thanks, John. And just to end on a high note really quickly. So England are #1 in all formats of cricket right now, whether it's one day test or T20. Anybody that's an avid cricket fan, such as myself,
And me.
spent most of the week incredibly productive from 4 a.m. because I was listening to the test match.
Oh, bless you. Good stuff.
But thank you very much, Simone.
Oh, can we do the wave?
We'll
Apparently waving's not trendy.
Yeah.
But...
Thank you, Simone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Yes, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Take care.